Now what do we do? What is a leader? Please look at my hand. You see that the hand is 5 different fingers? 5 different fingers. And we need the 5 different fingers in order to get a hand. Because every finger does something different than another finger. If you had 5 fingers, like the pointing finger, would you have a good hand? This is the best finger there is. No, you will not have a good hand. Because you will need things that this finger can do that this finger cannot do. Now in another segment I also told you that in the Middle East, when the 5 fingers are together, that's called a khamsa, that's a blessing. When the 5 fingers are separate, that's a curse. So if you put it in front of somebody's face, 5 fingers like this, you're actually cursing them. What is the difference between a blessing and a curse? Probably 2 inches. Are we different and together? That's a blessing. Or are we different and separate? That's a curse. So what is the role of leadership then? Look at my hand. Which finger is the most important one? This one. You know why? Because the thumb is what is the only finger that works with every other finger. If you don't have a thumb, you don't have a hand. As a matter of fact, if you lost your thumb by some accident, a surgeon will have to break your healthy finger to make it perform like a thumb so that you can have a hand. You know what the leadership is? Here is the title of my future book, or a chapter in my present book. Being a leader is being a thumb. Make us work together. Make our differences work as a hand. Please, many people think that leadership is this finger. Do this, pointing, telling people what to do. That's also leadership, no question about it. But it's only appropriate for a startup, by the way, or under tremendous time pressure or very risky situations. Somebody has to say, stop talking, time is too expensive, the cost of time is higher than the value of what we are getting out of it. Do something. Let's be approximately right rather than precisely wrong. That's okay, that's a leadership. But for a prime organization that is not under some crisis, normal situation, this is leadership. To get the different people to work together, to cross-pollinate, to enrich each other with their different points of view. It's like a group of people that are blind describing an elephant. Each one of them sees a piece or feels a piece. By communicating, they can see the total picture. And that's what we need in management. None of us is outstanding. None of us can do everything. What we really need is to work with each other, to complement each other. Then the totality is stronger than the parts. How does a leader do that? How does a leader do that? How do you make the differences work together? What I found out is what makes a difference between constructive and destructive conflict. Why some conflicts end up in a I can't stand you anymore syndrome. I can't work with you. It's very destructive. It robs us of energy. We cannot handle it anymore. And why, in another situation, a conflict is really growthful. You feel invigorated, energized. You learn something. You're appreciative of the difference. You appreciate what you learn. There is even a Zen expression that says, if all people think alike, none of them is thinking too hard. When you walk into a meeting and everybody says, I agree, I agree, I agree. Nobody's thinking too hard. When do you start thinking? When people disagree with you. You know, some ethnic groups are extremely smart, but pay attention to what's happening in the ethnic groups. They constantly challenge each other. They constantly disagree with each other. Jewish people is one of them. They never agree on anything. They will always try to find out a hole in your argument to disagree with you. That makes you think, That makes you constantly think. It's not a very easy way to live, but you constantly think. You constantly move your wheels. When people disagree, they think harder. But how to make the disagreement and thinking harder not be exhausting, disruptive, discouraging, dysfunctional? It is by having a culture of mutual trust and respect. And what does it really mean? What does it mean, mutual respect? Let's start with mutual respect. It is not how nicely you speak and how you smile and listen and look the person in the eye. I mean, some people, you just want to kill them. They speak very nicely, but you see the big teeth behind it. I mean, I've seen this in the faculty meetings when I was a professor. When a professor was starting a meeting and saying, may I disagree with my learned colleague? Wow, you know that the guy is pulling a knife to stab you with. So it's not the tone of voice. It helps, but it's not it. That's not the essence. And I was looking for many years, what is essence? What does really respect mean? And I found it with a philosopher, Immanuel Kant, who says, respect means to recognize the sovereignty of the other person to be different. Let's go over that slowly. To recognize the sovereignty, what does it mean? Undeniable right of the other person to think differently. When do we show disrespect to somebody? When we say, how can you think like that? How can you say that? It's unbelievable. This is idiotic. This is totally inappropriate. What are you really saying to the other person? Don't you dare to think differently. You must think like me. That's showing disrespect. Respect means to accept the other person as a right to think differently. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but you give them space to think differently. That's respect. That's respect. And what is trust? Trust is not synonymous with respect. Most people think, oh, it is one and the same. It isn't. Trust is when you believe, you have faith that the other person has your interest at heart. You trust those people that have your interest. When you share interest, when there is common interest. That's why, with a person you trust, you can turn your back to them. Why can you turn your back to them? Because since we share the same interest, if they stab you, they actually stab themselves. That's why you can trust them. They have your interest in heart. That's why they're not going to hurt you, because hurting you is hurting themselves. I trust people that share my interests. I respect people I learn from. If two people think alike or identically, one of them is unnecessary. Talk to yourself. What do you need the other person for? So what is a leader? A leader has to make the different fingers work together, like a hand. A leader has to make differences work synergistically. So we kind of enrich each other with our differences. We learn from each other. How does he do that? That is the role that the leader has to perform. And how does he or she do it? By creating and nurturing a culture of mutual trust and respect. That's how you raise your children too. The children are different. How do you make a family out of different styles? You and your spouse are different. The children are different. This can be a mess, can it not be? How do you make a family out of it? There must be mutual trust and respect. We must respect our differences, and we must share the common interest as a family. And the same thing is true for a company. And may I suggest to you the same thing is true for a country. If you are a prime minister, that's the most important thing you have to work on. How to create a culture in your country where mutual trust and respect dominates. Because when the trust and respect is gone, that's when the dysfunctionality, the conflicts are enormous, and the country gets stymied or even disappears as a country. Thank you very much.